And 3, 2, 1. There we go.
Here we go.
We're ready. Oh, my God.
We're here.
Well, motherfuckers, we're back again.
Here it is.
Back again. It's been a while because the last time we did this was Toxophiles back in February.
Yeah.
Pre-coronavirus. That shit.
That's when you were allowed to go outside.
We're going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very special edition today. This is the Humble Pastor Podcast, by the way.
Yep.
I'm Matt, and I'm joined by my counterpart, Mr. Jake. And we're going to talk about wellness today. This is like the wellness edition. It's like the theme of different themes for different HP podcasts. We're trying to hone in on each, but while we don't know what the fuck that is, we're just going to do shit and hope that it works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Off the cuff.
That's the idea. So we're going to start kind of just exploring stuff. I think we've talked about it a little bit, maybe like culinary stuff, wellness, aliens, conspiracy theories. You know, you're going to get the whole
cooking, aliens.
You should see like the board when we come up with like brainstorming board when we're coming up with like ideas of what to do. It goes over the whole spectrum from like HIV
everything.
conspiracy to like the latest in pastry design and
Pastry
shit
design.
like that. Yeah, it's like,
you get a whiteboard. You can put down like 50 things.
Yeah.
And then you just circle it and say aliens, ?
It always comes back to aliens.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to, and there is a high likelihood that this podcast will pivot to aliens. Why do I feel like to the word pivot? Like sometimes like certain key words, they're like hot button words. That's been a big one recently with coronavirus. Like we're going to pivot. We're going to pivot over to door-to-door sales, or we're going to pivot over to like on the patio eating.
Yeah, I don't know why that word is such an attractive option for, instead of saying we're going to like change what we're doing, maybe it's because it's like a way of saying we need the change, but without like making you feel bad that you need the change.
And it's business oriented. Like there's a lot of pivoting in business. Like when you've kind of come to the end of a sector where you can sort of exploit it. It's like, we're going to go ahead and pivot to a new market.
Yeah.
So I think it adds some kind of weird faux credibility to the shit. But anyways, I don't know. That was random. The other one was robust, like back in the day.
Robust. A robust economy.
Robust discussion about this shit. So today, on the Humble Pastor Podcast, we're going to have a robust, motherfucking pivoted discussion about aliens and potentially wellness.
Potentially.
All right, so tune in. Just oh yes, and if you're watching on YouTube, we should have the camera angles down if we don't fuck this up. So we're gonna see how this all comes out.
We'll try to remember to look at you guys every once in a while.
Yeah, I know. We're not just like strangers, like just talking. So you're watching two assholes. So what we'll do is segue really quick. Check it out on YouTube and do whatever you do with the subscribe thing. Just whatever you got to do.
Subscribe, like.
Yeah,
I think those are the two things. That's it.
And then after that, go see Discipline Gym because we got some content up there.
Oh yeah, more coming.
Talk about that really quick too, just so we can go play.
Oh yeah, so I run a YouTube channel on. It's also health, wellness, diet, nutrition, training, at home training, and gym training. And since I'm not too far off from getting my doctorate in physical therapy, I'm going to be. Yeah, heck yeah, man! I'm going to be putting a lot more videos on that kind of stuff soon. So how to treat injuries at home, how to rehab, how to do things like that. And also, I want to incorporate a lot of like, wellness, personal wellness and stuff like that into it. Maybe some language learning stuff, but I don't want to go too crazy. But
the personal wellness too, I kind of like what you're doing because it's not just physical stuff. Like you can argue that part of your overall well-being, and I guess maybe this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about today, includes financial health. It includes, of course we talk about mental and physical and emotional health, but also like your cultural diversity, like learning new languages, having new
learning
experiences.
New languages, spiritual health and stuff. Like just I was listening to someone this morning on YouTube talking about some of their favorite books, and one of them was I can't remember the name of the book, but it was by John Steinbeck, and it was like him traveling with his dog Charlie, he did something in one of the sections where he was talking about how to get more of like a exposure to other culture. He went to a different church, a different denomination every weekend for a certain amount of time, and stuff like that I think is interesting. It's kind of like visiting a different country, Like they have a different way of talking. They have different set beliefs that, when you're in a church, and you're talking to other people who go to that church, you have a lot of assumptions you can just make about their value system, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's one reason why people are so comfortable in like a church, in like the church community, because you can assume things about people, you know?
Yeah, it makes it a little easier to read into what people's core beliefs are, because you know you're kind of all on the same page.
Yeah.
But that to me is interesting, because what is the goal? Like, just to be the best version of human that you can be?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the definition of best is interesting, but I think it's just like not being ignorant about anything. Like, and man, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. So 2 things. I've been thinking about getting another tattoo. And yeah,
I'm a big advocate.
And it's going to be a very simple one.
Okay.
It's just going to be C equals M. And I just want to put it somewhere on me.
Okay.
And to me, that means can equals must, right?
I like that.
Like, if you can do something, you now have a responsibility to do that thing if it benefits you or benefits other people, you know?
Yeah.
And traveling around and learning different languages, learning different cultures, learning different religions, like just reading different styles of books, you know, it makes you a better person, but it also, like, I don't know, it's just like, it's what you should be doing as a human. That's what I feel like, you know?
Yeah. There's the constant progress, like just trying to improve. Because what else are we here for, honestly?
Like, I don't know. It depends on what you believe.
You make some fucking money, you know, you buy some cool shit, and then you maybe make some babies, and then
kids,
you die. Yeah.
And then you die, and hopefully your kids have a better life than you, and
you know,
life improves.
It's cyclical. There's no doubt about it, but I think that hopefully there's maybe a little bit more to it than that, and that's what you're talking about, is just finding those not extraneous, but things that you can do that bring more meaning to your life.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's, you know, I think there are different, you know, modes you can be in.
Yeah.
Some people, they enjoy finding a career they're passionate about, sticking in that lane and providing for their family. And by the time they're 80 and they're like about to die, they're like, I wouldn't change anything, you know?
I'm good. Yeah.
But other people, they need to be doing something. They need to be learning about other people, you know? They need to be discovering themselves, you know?
You're geared like that.
I'm very introspective.
For sure.
Like every day, like an hour a day.
It's constantly like,
At least.
you know, it's sometimes brutal to watch, because you're like, it's just like every day.
Yeah.
It's just like a mission to improve.
Yeah.
That
you
can
know,
be tough, dude.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And from other people, their perspective is he's too hard on himself, you know? And he like negates the positive. Like I like to accomplish things. And it's like, it's weird because I don't know how to explain it. It's like you think when you accomplish something, you'll feel a certain way. Yeah. But sometimes you're just accomplishing things, at least for me, if you're like a doer, like this type of person I am, you're just accomplishing things just for the sake of accomplishing things. Like, you're not like, I'm going to be happy when I do this. You're just going to be like, I want to do that.
Right. There's no end goal.
It's
like,
just
I'm doing this because of this.
Yeah, I'm doing this because I want to be productive and I want to do something. Like, there are probably content creators or like artists that are just like, I want to be an artist and I love art. And even on days where I don't feel like painting or I don't feel like doing something or writing, I'm just going to do it anyways to uphold the habits, because I want to write my first book. I want to paint my first picture and get it out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, it might just be a chore to get that first one out, but, you know, the end goal is I want to be someone who makes art, you know?
You know, and I think we stumbled upon it. There's probably no lack of fucking material out there, like books and self-help shit that you can find that has this as a principle. But if you're trying to struggle to progress to be better in any way, I think you kind of nailed it. It's like you have to be willing to buy in and sacrifice and be diligent in the way that you approach your achieving your goals. If you don't have that part of it, you're probably destined to not achieve much of anything at all.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe in the short term, but not over the long term.
Yeah, it's interesting because everyone's situation is different. Oh man, there's another quote. All right, let me see if I can find the name of this book.
Yeah, pull it up.
But it was talking about the definition of freedom, which can be different for everybody. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, here we go. So it's by a book called Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg.
Okay.
And she talks about how a lot of people, like, the general connotation of the word freedom would be, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, right?
Yeah.
She was saying after her, like, introspection and her self-study and throughout her writing books and stuff like this, she was saying that her definition has changed, as where a lot of people think of it as freedom as I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. It's now freedom is the ability to find out what you can bring to the world, find out what you're passionate about, find out what your purpose is, and to have the ability to do that thing.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Because it's not just sort of, it's not open-ended. It's kind of like you have some almost some personal responsibility in it.
Yeah.
You know,
Which brings it back to the can equals must thing, you know?
yeah, I like that. We came full circle on that. Yeah, I definitely think you should get the new tattoo.
I'm going to get it. I got to figure out where.
Right on your left ass cheek.
I was going to go full Casey Neistat, just right here on my forearm.
Every day, just look at it.
Look in the mirror.
Well, that's why I like tattoos. You know, it's funny because if my grandma heard this, she'd shit her pants. but yeah, she hates tattoos. And older generations, like I know my parents do, but they're nice about it at least.
Yeah,
you know, they're like white people nice about it. They're like, oh yeah,
like, oh, you got a tattoo? You got another one?
Yeah,
very passive.
Yeah, so I promised my grandma I wouldn't do another one till she passes on to the next world.
Dang, that's hardcore, bro.
Hey, you know,
she's like, you can get one when I'm dead, and you're like, okay.
That's that deep seated German, like I'm just fucking yeah. So I'm like, all right, grandma, I'm definitely not. Yeah, she's like, I will come back and I will fucking haunt you.
Oh God,
so, that's the last thing I need. So Grammy, I'm not getting any tattoos.
She's blackmailing you and not getting tattoos.
Oh man, but that'd be a great ghost series, you know. Just
you should get a tattoo anyways, because you could. That could be if you start getting haunted by her, that proves something, you know.
That's true. Ghosts are real.
Ghosts are real.
Yeah, I never believed in ghosts until I got my tattoo and my grandma came back in the afterlife and haunted me.
Like it was a horrible experience, and it led you to committing suicide early. But at least you learned.
Other than that,
that there's something.
It took a morbid turn.
Well, that reminds me of this YouTube video of this guy who gets haunted by this dude that just hits him with spoons for like years. Just smacks him with spoons, and that's it.
What?
And it just drives him insane. Like he's covered in bruises all the time. Like no matter what he's doing, he's like he's trying to do a business meeting, and this ghost is just sitting there just smacking him in the face with a spoon, and he's just like, oh God.
How does he know it's a spoon?
He can see it. He can see the guy. He's the only one. He can see the guy, and he's just smacking him with the spoon all the time.
Could be a mental health component to this.
It's great.
Don't know. Yeah, I did. Imagine, it's like, explain that to your wife. Like, there's this fucking guy, and he just keeps smacking with spoons in my fucking face every day.
Right there. It wasn't like a documentary on a guy who can see this ghost. It was like a parody video of like, it was like a funny video of this guy who just got haunted by a ghost that smacked him with a spoon all the time. But
that's gold, man.
It's wonderful. It was like a 4-video series, and at the end, he finally like knocks the spoon out of the ghost's hand, and I was like,
"That's the first time he thought to do that."
He did it. Yeah, I don't know. He wasn't able to do it until then. He finally did it. I remember there was a twist though. I think the ghost like opened his jacket, and there was like a fuck ton of spoons, and he just grabbed another one, and the guy was like, "No!"
It's like a it's like a Twilight Zone episode.
It was great.
All right, so if you're not familiar with the podcast, this will be a tangent-filled podcast. Like I said, like you can always bring it back to aliens. Like you can expect us to go probably all over the map. So hopefully this is something that, because I don't know if you do this. I think you do. You just, if I'm cleaning the house, cleaning the crib, a lot of it I don't even watch the YouTube. I'm just listening to it. Conversational. Yeah.
I do that while I'm going on walks, while I'm trying to go to sleep, while I'm cleaning, doing dishes, like. Yeah. I don't even really watch them most of the time.
Well, speaking of wellness too, so like, what are the things that you feel like putting in your head are important? Like if you're doing like in the background, right?
Yeah, I go through some phases.
Yeah.
Usually, my biggest things are like how to learn something. So I do a lot of like, it's almost all educational.
Yeah.
So like TED Talks, I like to listen to TED Talks.
Can't go wrong.
People reviewing audiobooks or books or just listening to audiobooks. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. People talking about how they learned like a new language or stuff like that. How to meditate. Just like finances is a huge one. That's what I've been on recently.
Yeah.
Just like I feel like, and we already talked about this, my personality, I always have to be improving, so I don't like wasting time. So if I can be like being entertained while cleaning, while also learning something, it's like that's better than that. While doing cardio, you know?
I like where you're going with it, because like from a big picture standpoint too, the idea is basically we live in a time where like all this wealth of information is so readily available.
Yeah.
And more so than any other time in human history.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yet we spend so much fucking time watching cat videos and fucking people falling off bikes and shit.
I've never gotten the cat video, but I will watch a person falling off a bike video.
Yeah, and there's something visceral about it. I mean, not to knock either one of those videos, but case in point, what I'm trying to say is that you have all this information, all this good content. YouTube is a great purveyor of that, but you have to be willing to tap into it and use it the way that I think it's intended to be used, which You know, if like some of the great like Plato or Socrates or you know anybody like Isaac Newton had the internet, they'd lose their fucking minds.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even know what to do with themselves. They'd probably be YouTube heads. They'd just be like on the
all
computer
the time.
all day.
Yeah, you know what just popped in my head?
Is that
YouTube is the new Library of Alexandria.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all the knowledge in the world in one place.
And it's crazy that it used to be in a building.
Yeah.
Like, and that was all we knew.
That's
But
because
now
all we
it's-
knew was so small it could fit in a building.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's one of the things where, you know, I have a hard time where people say, "Oh, it's so much worse now than."
It's like, no, it's not, bro.
Dude, it's so much better.
You have plumbing.
Yeah.
Boom.
You're not dying. Well, you know,
Your life's
maybe not
better.
the right time to
well,
say this.
yeah. No more plague. Wait a second.
Yeah. There's no more plague.
Well,
I mean,
this plague isn't killing a third of the entire population.
yeah. So
it's better.
I guess we should talk about that a little bit since it's kind of in the news cycle right now. I don't know, man. I don't know. I walk on eggshells with this because I don't want to get in trouble.
It's hard to talk about it openly without some people feeling like you're detracting from what they're going through. You know what I'm saying? Like demeaning the importance of, 100,000 people dying is still insane.
It is. It's still a tragedy in that way.
Yeah.
So I think you can recognize that it is a tragedy and something that needs to be addressed. Like, like here in Virginia, we have the everybody wears a mask order now when you're going out public, which I'm not going to fight about that. I'll wear a fucking mask.
Just put a mask
I
on.
don't care. It's not a big deal.
It's easier to do than the 6 foot apart rule.
Right. It's just, and I get that people are like, oh, it's infringing upon my freedom and stuff like that. And I can understand that argument. And you're right to have that opinion. That's the best thing about the country we live in.
Boom. We still got to do it.
But just do it. Just do it for now because people are going to complain. It's like a marriage. Sometimes it's give and take.
You just got to do it.
You just, if the wife wants you to take the trash out, you just take it out. You know what I mean? It's better to just keep everybody happy. But I don't know. But when you look at it, this is the other side of it. So yes, it is a tragedy. But when you look at the actual statistics about the death rate.
The funny thing is, every controversial topic I can think about, the loudest, most controversial truth that like people portray is always the one that has like the statistics disprove. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the statistics, you're like, what? And it doesn't make sense, but that's how it goes. So like with the numbers that we're seeing right now, like in the state that we're in, out of like the tens of millions of people that live in the state we're in, like 1,000 people have died and everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, dude, 1,000 people died yesterday from tripping on like a rock in the woods or something. Like, it still sucks and it's still a lot of people. But
and that's the whole thing. Like, is it even possible to mourn every single death that we have for whatever reason? And it's just not. Like, I get that it's sad when people die, but outside of the news media, when they're not plastering it on your TV all day long, people are dying all the time, and you're not crying about it. You're not taking to Facebook and screaming your outrage. So I get it, but motherfuckers die every day. Like it's not. This is not everything new.
And I like looking at the numbers, Yeah. So, and I'll take another controversial topic, right? Huge tragedies like mass shootings or something.
Sure.
Like where like 27 people get shot and killed.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at like a few years ago, I was looking at one and I'm like, 27 people, like everyone is like losing their fucking minds about this. Yeah. And I'm like, 27 people? Like that doesn't seem like a lot of people. And so I like looked it up and like literally a month before there was a mudslide somewhere and it killed 80 people.
Yeah.
And like no one talked about it. I'm like, that's almost 3 times more. That's 3 times more people that died in a mudslide.
It's just relative.
And I think it's because one of them was purposeful and one wasn't. So
intent has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably you get to a point where you can break it down just as simply as some people's brains are structured more like you and I have more rational kind of thinking. Like we look at the statistics, try and analyze it in a certain way, which is, I won't even say right or wrong. It just is.
It's a different way of thinking about things. It's more stoic philosophy in that way. Like you can control the things you can control. Like I'm not worried about the virus for myself.
Right.
I'm not really worried about it overall in the way that most people are, but I am worried about my parents probably getting it because they're older and they both work in a hospital and like, so, you can have your fears.
You've got those two types of people too, because you have the emotionally driven people where I think this is the case in a lot of the more hot topics where it's like, you have people that are trying to rationalize a situation, which I don't think is a bad way of approaching it. And then you have people where, the raw emotion drives a lot of their decision-making process. So like you I think you have two sides to each one, and neither one is necessarily right or wrong, but they don't meet in the middle very well. Mm-hmm. And so what they do is cross-contaminate. Like, if I'm a rational person, I'm like, look at all these people overreacting, wearing like hazmat suits and all this bullshit. And on the other side of it, they're like, you don't care about all these people that have died because you're minimizing their life, and every life has meaning. And it's like, I didn't say that.
Yeah, I didn't say that
I'm
at
just
all.
trying to have but people get stuck on the ends of the spectrum, and that's for everything. It's like black or white, nowhere in between. And that's what drives me crazy. It's like, don't we all just
because we're all
in
on the in-between.
Yeah, we're in the gray.
There's no such thing as black and white.
That's a good podcast name.
Yeah.
In the gray.
In the gray.
Ooh, I like that. Oh, man.
Coming
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Uh-oh.
Coming at you soon. In the gray. Controversial topics.
We got to talk about it. Got to talk about it in respectful ways.
Yeah, and I think my biggest issue with everything that's going on is, like, you kind of hope the government will have the rational reaction to things. Mm. But when they have the insane emotional reaction, you're like, wait, hold on. You know, like, why are they doing this? Do they have an ulterior motive? That's the first thing I think about with government,
And it's likely that there's a lot of the time there is.
Yeah. And, I'm more worried about the economy than I am about, like, my friends and family dying of this virus. But
yeah, I mean, if you talk about the impact at large, just look at the number of people on unemployment, right?
Oh my God. Almost everyone I know is on it now, and they don't want to get off. They're making so much.
This is going to be a problem. I've been saying this, but it's going to be a problem because we put a nice little Band-Aid on it for now, but long term, the economic implications of this are going to be not good. But that's scary when you're talking about millions of people. Like, we had 100,000 deaths just crossed that line. It's more than that now.
Yeah.
But X number of millions of people on unemployment, which is not tenable. So it's like, how are these people going to feed their families when eventually they got to pull the rug out of this thing? Because you can't keep them on welfare forever.
Well, I think this is something that has been a debate right now between, like, Democrats and Republicans. It's when we finally get to a place where we feel like we should stop giving the unemployment incentive, like the extra a certain amount a week that they're giving people, do we just stop it, or do we wean them off, like a transition phase? And I mean, I'm not really sure about the laws, but once the state opens up for small businesses to open again, if you refuse to go back to work, then you don't get unemployment. Like, you can get fired, like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, now you're choosing not to work on purpose to make unemployment, which shouldn't be the case.
There's going to be a healthy number of people that do that too.
Yeah. Well, I know people right now who got offered a certain amount of time to come back to work, but they chose to work less so they can make unemployment at the same time.
And I can't really, I can't blame these people for doing it because the incentive is just not there. You're like, why am I going to?
Well, you work for money. Some people.
In my heart, just go back to work and say, okay, I'm going to make a fraction of what I was making before, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds nice, but I don't expect anybody to do that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's like, I get angry at those people sometimes just while I'm walking around thinking about stuff, like meditating. I'm just like, I get kind of upset, multiple reasons, but then you kind of have to put yourself in the same shoes. So if I was sitting at home making $4,000 a month, not working, and my boss was like, hey, so the government opened back up again. Do you want to come back to work 40 hours a week and make half that?
Right.
I'll be like, I don't really want to, but I feel like I would because like I get bored. Like, I'm the kind of guy that, like, a week into summer break, I'm like, man, I wish school was back on.
What
like,
the fuck am I doing?
I need to be doing something. Like, I don't have enough money to go travel for 3 months. Well,
it's true.
Like, I got to be doing something, earning my own money.
Well, that's
but
what scares
at the same time,
because I think that's also a pillar of, like, just human existence is just like the value of work, like, to create purpose, to cultivate purpose in your life. It's
a very different viewpoint than work equals money.
Right. You're doing work because you're trying to fulfill some part of your life, and if that correlates with you making money, which I think it does. I think if you bring enough passion to something, eventually the money will follow.
Because passion comes value,
Yep, and you have to be persistent. Like, you can't just be like, oh, well, I'm going to work a little bit, and then I expect there's a lot of people that do that, and it's like, I'm going to, like, for this example, like, how many people have started podcasts and shit, and it's like,
right now,
I'm going to start my podcast, and I'm going to be a millionaire, and then you do, like, 2 episodes, and you're like,
I don't have a million views yet.
Yeah, it didn't happen overnight for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and quit. Like,
yeah. Oh, man, part of the video I was watching this morning when I did my walk was literally the guy was interviewing these 2 brothers that started a podcast, or, like, these 2 friends that started a podcast, and they were like, they started the podcast and they're like, I know growth is going to be slow, so let's just promise each other right now we're in it for 5 years no matter what.
Yeah, I like that.
And we'll reevaluate at the end of 5 years. So even if we do one podcast every week for 5 years and we get no views, we got to do the whole 5 years.
I love that.
And it's interesting because they're like around, I think they're around like the 4 or 5 year mark right now. Mm-hmm. And they're finally now, like in the last month, they had more downloads than the last whole year before the last month.
Yeah.
So they're like finally hitting it in 4 years, you know? And you know, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time, but if you have fun doing it and it can support you monetarily at some point.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Well, this is why I like doing the HP podcast, and we've done a trial of like the Intox files. So hopefully there'll be more of that stuff to come. But I like that too, because, you know, we like to go out, and the whole idea was like have a couple drinks every once in a while.
Yeah.
But I really don't like just drinking for the sake of drinking, like what you're talking about. Like,
yeah.
I'd like purposeful drinking.
Make something out of it, you know?
Yeah, if we're going to have...
multitask.
We have some great drunken conversations, so that sparked the ember that was like, you know, why don't we just record this? And then it's fruitful to some degree because you're expressing yourself somewhat creatively, mm-hmm. and it can be shared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For better or for worse, nobody watches it, nobody listens to it, whatever.
I mean, at the worst, not a single person watches it, and then later when you have kids, you can show your kids, and they'll be like, ha, that's my dad.
Yeah, this was Dad's Shitty Podcast back in 2000s. Yeah, 2010s.
I know it's going to be very different for the kids growing up now. Like, when I was a kid, I think I've seen, like, 3 pictures of my parents when they were younger than 30 or 40, you know? And now we have, like, so many pictures of us when we were younger that it's like, that's not even going to be a thing.
It was to the point where, like, because photographs were, you know, so
like
seldom
rare.
taken, like, you can't envision your parents as being young.
Yeah.
Because you have no frame of reference. Like, occasionally you see, like, a high school picture.
Yeah,
like, oh, shit, you were young once. Weird.
Oh, man.
And now you have all your Facebook pictures and your fucking MySpace, Instagram, like, going all the way back.
All the way back.
And you can show your kids and be like...
I had abs once.
They were there.
That's it.
One time. They're coming
there.
back. They're coming back. Hopefully, even when you're dad, you know, you're a dad, you'll still have dad abs.
That's my my goal is to
fuck the dad bod. Just
look like a 30-year-old my entire life until I'm 110. There you go.
Just looking like you're filled with like formaldehyde and shit.
There you
Botoxed
go.
out. You're like, yeah, I'm alive.
How old are you? 100?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
This many.
I was born in 92. And what year is it now?
Oh, man. 92. Shit. You're 4 years younger than me?
Yeah. I want to make it to 108 years old so I can hit 2100.
That's a stellar goal.
I can be, because I was born in the 90s.
Yep.
And then I made it to the 2000s. And if I can make it to the 2100s, I'll be in 3 centuries.
That would be crazy.
There was the last person that has lived in 3 centuries just died like a month ago or something. They were born in like 1899,
so crazy.
Like December 12th.
You can't even fathom. And I think it's good to have a study of like centurions, people that are really fucking old, and do a deep dive, because we work with some really old people. I work with some really old people in the nursing homes. You know, the oldest I think I ever worked with was 106 or 107. It's funny as shit to talk to her. She was like, my dad, when those automobiles came out for the first time, he didn't fucking trust those things. Like,
like horses.
Yeah, they were like,
they
these
went
are
too
never
fast.
Gonna catch on. Yeah, you know, these newfangled contraptions never going to catch on. But she saw that, she lived through that.
Yeah,
and then just think about even the last 30 years, like,
God.
Like, how do you just get left in the dust? I think at some point you're that old, your frame of reference, you're just like, shit is happening around you at an increasing rate, and you're just like, I don't even know,
dude. I think I'm already like, I'm not feeling it in the way that I'm like technologically unsavvy, but it's just every time a new app comes out and gets really popular, you have to relearn a whole app. You have to like all this stuff, and kids nowadays grew up in it.
Yeah.
So they like know how everything kind of just works. Like, what am I trying to say? Like, I think I tried to incorporate Twitter like into my social media a while ago, and I'm just like, never mind. I don't know how to do any of this. Like, is this just people just like saying crap that's on their minds, and then I say crap that's on my mind, and then someone might agree with me or not, and then that's how that works? It's like a writer's Instagram or Snapchat.
Yeah, that's just a wasted medium for me. I know that people think it's important, but I just don't, and I can't change that.
Yeah, I think it's cool in the way that it gives everyone a voice, and you can just throw it out there.
It's true.
And there you go.
Yeah, I've talked to you, I think, about this, and then other people too, where it's like we're lucky because we were born just at that turning point where we were young enough to really absorb just technological advancement, like how to use phones. Like when cell phones came out, the internet was just dialing up.
Grew up as it was being created. So
so you can still get like a gizmo in your hand or an app or something like that, and you can, for the most part, you can sort of unpackage how to use it, make it functional. But like our parents are fucking lost, man. They don't have any frame of reference.
My mom didn't want to switch to a touchscreen phone for a bit because she was like, "How do I know what I'm clicking on?"
Yeah, I just got Pops on the iPhone, and it's like every time it's like a tutorial of like how to use it.
How do you turn it on, bro?
Oh my god, yeah, and it's great, and luckily Apple's pretty intuitive, but it's like it's just like a monkey with a rock for the first time. It's like, what the fuck can I do with this?
Yeah, I think I can bang it against it. That reminds me of it's like, I was thinking about this the other day. So they have like infrared keyboards that they can project onto the desk in front of you.
That's cool.
So you don't actually need a keyboard, and it tracks like your fingers and stuff.
Whoa. And
I was like, I really want one of those, but like you can't feel where the home row keys are.
Yeah,
so now I'm old.
That's like the book problem. It's like some people, like for me, I like Pages. Some people can do the Kindle thing. Like old school people like Pages. I take notes on paper.
Yeah, me
not
too.
On my laptop,
and I like it, and I feel like it helps me retain the information better.
Oh, there goes the GoPro. Well, that's all the B-roll we're going to get out of that.
There you go.
That's all right. It made it a half an hour. But I think it does too, because you're more muscularly invested in it. You're more physiologically invested in it because you're writing something. You're looking at what you're writing. Your hand is moving. I suppose when you're typing, but there is a detachment there. I feel like that has to happen.
Yeah, and maybe it's because we grew up writing all the time. I didn't start. I think college was the first time I like had a laptop and like used it for notes.
Yeah, still, like I just don't get the same thing. Like I'll go back and type stuff, and then I kind of like review in my head, like, okay, what did we just talk about? And I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue is if I use a laptop now because I just don't want to have to carry around a backpack full of crap. Yeah. So I'll just bring my laptop and I'll use it to type notes. And I feel like I find myself, if I'm typing notes in a lecture, I end up typing what the teacher's saying because I can type a lot faster than I can write.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, it won't even be like the note that's just the important information. It'll just be like everything the teacher's saying, and I can type that. If I write, I can't write that fast, so I only write the important stuff that she's saying.
That's true. Yeah. It's a nice way to break it down. I think, and it also touches on something for like, I guess this is pertinent to wellness too, is just, and I get your thoughts on it, like knowing how to learn, like learning. I think you kind of already pointed to it a little bit when you're talking about what types of YouTube videos. You watch a lot of YouTube videos that have to do with how to learn.
Yep, I love it.
But you also have to understand how you learn what, and the people break it down. It's like auditory or visual, and I think that's a very basic way of doing it. But what methodologies, what practices work best for you so that you can take information that's floating here and put it up here and have it stick.
Have it stick. Sticking is the hard part.
It's hard.
I found for me, just doing it always the best way for me to retain it. Just do it. And then the second best way is for me to teach it to someone else.
Sure.
So those two ways are like, pretty much they're the only two ways I'm going to retain information. Yeah. If I write it down or I like read it or I hear someone say it, I have to transfer it to one of those other mediums or it's not going to stick longer than a few days.
Yeah.
You know? And which is hard because, when you're in like a program like I'm in and you're in like 7 classes at a time, 3 lectures a week with each of those and like all this stuff, you don't have time to go reteach like 20 hours of lectures to someone else or like to do all this stuff. So you kind of have to figure out a way to get that. I like flashcards sometimes.
Flashcards are good. Yeah. The one thing I really, because I had like a love-hate relationship with school.
Yeah.
It's like, so like I didn't go a lot.
Yeah.
But it was mostly because of the medium, like so much, and this is my peeve with like a lot of the education system, which is the backbone of how we teach kids.
Yeah.
It's fucked up in a lot of ways, but one thing I hate is from a curriculum standpoint, and I get it, I mean, our teachers are valued more than ever. It's not easy to take 30 fucking like little demon children in a classroom and try and get them to learn. Like, learn, goddamn you.
Times tables, it's so fun.
Yeah, dude. You ever have Mad Minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, this is a segue. So let me just talk about Mad Minutes for a second. I was pissed off. I was in advanced all classes all the way through middle school. That's when I still believed in the education system. A's, all A's. Like I was on it. And I remember when I was in 6th grade, I went to this thing. I went in this class, and the first thing she had us do were these fucking mad minutes, which if you don't know what it is, you're doing times tables, and you're trying to do as many of them as possible within 1 minute. And I just don't work like that, dude.
No.
I can get to
it's just torture.
Yeah, and in what fucking real sense are you going to have to do multiplication problems as fast as possible?
I think it's just like, I think the point of the education system, in my opinion, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, it's not to actually teach kids something. It's to have them use their brains in multiple ways as they develop, so they end up being a smarter person in general when they're older.
Yeah.
Which is, like, if you look back at the curriculums, you get retaught the same things over and over and over and over.
100%.
And it's not because you need to know who George Washington's younger brother was and what fight he died in. Like,
No.
it's because it's good to just be in a learning mode as you're developing. I think that's the main thing. I think they make a huge mistake by having these big square white buildings with these kind of either in like fluorescent.
Learning
it's
prisons,
literally that, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
And it's like even now, I'm in a doctorate program. If your class is longer than an hour and you're just talking, I'm done. Like,
That's it.
I don't even care. I'm done. And it's funny because I was watching a Jordan Peterson video the other day, and he was like, he was talking about how he was always like a restless kid when he was younger. And he's like one of the world's leading like academics right now, like
Sure.
doing all this stuff. And he was like, I wanted to know if now with all my knowledge and all my discipline and all this stuff, like if I went back, how I would feel. So he went back to school like for like a class with his daughter or something,
Yeah.
like in high school or something like that. And he was like, it was worse.
Yeah.
Like I lasted 5 seconds and I was already wanting to talk to someone next to me or like annoy someone just to be having something to do, you know?
It's true.
And it's like, if you can't get a 50-year-old like university professor who reads for fun to learn something in a class, how are you going to get kids that don't want to be there?
It's not a good look, man.
You know?
When you're competing with technology and all these other things, I just think that if we had a curriculum, because and the point I was trying to make too is that we have a system of regurgitation, memorization, regurgitation. So it's like, read this fucking book, memorize these keywords, and then spit them back to me on the exam, and you'll get an A.
Which I think does a huge disservice to people, because once they graduate and they try to find a job, they realize that you can't be successful by just knowing stuff. You have to be able to do things.
Yeah, it's not just input, output. It's like, you go your job interview, and it's like, so, how are you going to approach this situation? And it's like, 11? Is that the answer?
11.
11?
How are you going to drive more sales? Well, in this book, I read that this guy did this, so maybe we can try doing that. It's like, do you have any original ideas? What's that?
One of the best lines in Good Will Hunting, like a great movie that I love. It's like something to the effect of like, you spent $100,000 on an education you could have got for 5 cents in late fees at the public library.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's so true. But
I got a good example of that.
Let's talk about it.
So when my mom was younger, I think she ended up going to college, not really knowing exactly what she wanted to do, graduated college, couldn't find a job, like worked at JCPenney's for a while, and then was like, I want to be like a health inspector or something like that. So she literally went to the library every day for like months, learning like dirt samples and like learning all this.
That's awesome.
And then she got a job as a health inspector. And she did freaking from a library.
Yeah.
And then she joined the military later.
I mean, and that's it's taking some control over your situation and also like knowing how to learn, what to learn to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do basically waste your fucking time for 12 years. And then you get to college, and guess what, like freshman and sophomore year are? Learning the same shit.
It's literally
prerequisite
gen
courses.
eds. It's high school all over again for 2 years. And that pissed me off,
Except
man.
you're paying. Except
you're paying
$1.
like $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year to just retake high school classes.
How does that work too? Because what you've done now is you're trying to accelerate because the reason you go to college is because you're trying to increase your earning power.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason. I mean, unless like, I get it. If you're an art major or whatever, you can go. We were kind of the last generation where it was like, you can go to college and be whatever you want to be.
It's like, not anymore.
Wrong. You got to be able to find a job, man. You just have to. So, but you're trying to increase your earning power. How are you supposed to do that when every year you're learning all these classes that you've already learned that do not pertain to what the end goal of what you're trying to achieve is? And meanwhile, you're burying yourself in debt every semester. That is going to be hard to get out once you do find a job. And you really only spend 2 years learning. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the way they teach college classes either, but
Yeah.
pretty much your junior and senior year, like in a bachelor's degree.
There you go.
And on top of that, if you want to be even more specialized, then you have to go back to school again
Master's,
at a
doctorate.
higher cost just to get the specialization that you need. So you know this too well, because by the time you come out of school, it's like, oh yeah, so I can make $80,000 a year, but I'm $200,000. You know what I mean?
I'm like 140 is what it's going to look like.
That's crazy, man.
I'll be making more than 80,000 a year though.
Yeah,
Better be making more than 8,000 a year.
You'll be good. But it sets backwards, like you said when we were doing financial analysis. It's like when you factor in the debt into your net worth.
Oh yeah.
And you look at it way down here, you're like, ooh, that stings.
Did I make the right decision?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because I totally agree. I think if there needs to be, I think it's because, okay, now you're in higher education. We need to make sure you retain some of those core lessons from the last 12 years because most people don't give a crap about them and they barely passed. So I think like at most the first year should be like one like advanced math concepts class, like one advanced history concepts class. And it doesn't have to be like just straight European. It should be just like an overview of like the world history. Yeah. Like you shouldn't be able to get by only taking American history your whole life. Yeah. Like your history class in college should be world history, right?
It should.
And then take like a physics. I think everyone needs to understand physics. People who don't understand physics I'm just like, how do you operate? Like they'll be carrying something and they'll turn one way and the thing they're carrying falls off and they'll be like, why'd that happen? Yeah. And I'm like, 'cause you just turned inertia. Okay.
Simple physics, like you have a brain for physics. I do think the core concepts of physics everybody should know. I mean, it's something fundamental.
I had to explain to someone the other day how like the shower water is heated. Like I was like,
wizards.
Yeah, they were like they thought that the more you turn the hot, the more the hot water cooler, like the heater, like heats the water. And I was like, no, it's already hot, and then there's not hot water, and the more you turn it, it mixes it in different ratios.
Yes.
And they're like, no.
Well, no, it's the gnomes, it's the trolls,
heater.
Fucking heater pixies.
That's why we have a heater. No, but it's just like I don't know. I just got off on a tangent, and then some basic biology, like maybe it'll open your horizons to understanding that we're not just like the freaking center of the universe.
Oh God, don't even get me started on that.
And then all that should be like basic recap. Now you're like a functioning human being. Now let's actually teach you your degree that you want to go get a job in. Yeah. And so it could be a 3-year instead of a 4-year. Like who picked 4 years? That's
it's
so
just
random.
So relative. And
now people in their mid-20s before they even start their life.
I mean, how many prerequisite programs did you have to take? How many credits worth of prereqs? So not like, requisite, prereqs.
So my whole undergrad degree was like 121 credits.
Fuck.
Right? And I think out of all those, like 30-something were like needed for my doctorate degree, but you had to have the degree.
Of course, but take that, multiply per credit hour.
Oh.
Put a dollar sign on it. And it's like, okay,
you wasted $45,000 taking classes that didn't have anything to do with your
I'm not trying to downplay the importance of a college experience because I do think it is one investment you can make that will pay you dividends. Education and learning is
social-wise, too.
So absolutely. But can we not like Elon Musk this thing? Like, can't we cut off some of the fat? You know what I mean?
Cut off some of the fat.
Find a way to make that rocket cheaper. You know what I mean?
Just make school, K through 12.
Uh-oh.
K through 12. More about human interaction than it is about strict memorization.
Sure.
That's what I think. They got rid of recess. I loved recess, man. Keep it until college.
You got to keep recess and find ways. Okay, you can do recess, and maybe a part of recess is learning something outside. You know what I mean? So you could have a classroom component and walk and learn, right? But just, God, what do you expect to happen when you lock up these little children in a room and don't let them out for 8 hours during the day? It's like... And
then tell them all they have ADHD and they need to be medicated?
You got to go on pills, yeah, because you can't sit still. And it's like, these are kids, man. Like, what do you expect? I don't understand. And you start so young. Well, you got... They put you on Ritalin early,
Ritalin and Concerta and everything.
Fuck, man.
I hate it because it's like, all right, as an adult, let's create an idea of how a kid should act.
Right.
And if he's not acting that way, let's just medicate him and try to get him to act that way.
That is strange, isn't it?
No, if I have a kid who's like running around, like running into walls and shit, like I'll be like, heck yeah, he's got energy now. I'm not going to be like, time to get on the Ritalin.
There was I hate that I can't remember his name, but it was a TED Talk. And it was a guy whose shtick is kind of like, he talks about the education system. Mm-hmm. And he had an example. I'll have to look this up. But he had an example where there was this girl, and she wanted to move. She was very movement oriented, so she was constantly fidgeting and doing these things. And he was recounting the story of how she like went to the counselor at the school, and they were like, yeah, the parents were like, I think maybe she needs to be on medication or whatever. And he meets with her and talks to her. He's like, your daughter doesn't need to be on medication. She needs to move her body to learn.
Yeah.
So he's like, she should take dance, and she should go into the arts, and then also have, her classes inserted around that.
Yeah.
It's just something she needs to learn how to do. And in her telling of the story, she's like, that changed my life, because they could have just medicated me with all this stuff. Really, my body just needs to move, to absorb. I have a lot of extra energy I'm trying to exert. My brain can't focus on something if I'm not moving or doing something. So, and she became like a world-class ballerina dancer and very well educated. And it's just like, but that's a moment in time that could have set that young lady's life trajectory on a totally different path. And somebody smart, with half a brain.
Give that guy a medal.
Yeah, said, you know what? No, this is stupid. Don't put her on pills. Just let her do what her body wants to do.
It reminds me of kind of like the healthcare system in a way that it's like they try to push straight for surgeries instead of doing like conservative treatment first.
We see that all the time.
Yeah. And it's like, what's the quick fix? What's the quick fix that'll make the most money? And buying pills and then taking them.
Yep.
But it's not always the best option.
It's either we're going to put a pill in you, or we're going to cut you open and change
take a
the
pill
parts.
out of you.
Yeah, it's one of the two. But I don't like that notion. It's just there are really. I think that's a pretty good principle. Is there's no quick fixes. There are some, but there's not many.
Not many. I mean, usually the quick fixes too aren't long lasting.
Yeah.
So you should always be aiming for the long lasting fix.
Yeah.
And I know some people need that quick-acting short fix, so like a cortisone injection or something like that, from our point of view. But you can't take a cortisone injection and be like, boom, I'm healed, and then not do anything else.
Right.
So it's like that in life, You can't just get a good degree and say, boom, I'm good. I don't need to do anything else.
Some people do.
Yeah, some people do. But, if it works for you, then I don't know. I got friends who's like, not everyone thinks like us or like me,
Sure.
Some people are like, man, I got a job as a barista that pays $2,000 a month. And I only spend $20,000 a year, so I'm good. That's I don't need to ever get another job again. I'm satisfied, And I'm like, you blow my mind. I would go crazy.
That's okay. I mean, being satisfied is good. It might hurt you a little bit if you're doing it the long term, and then you want to go retire and you have no money.
You realize you're 80 and you're alone.
I guess I should have invested in that 401k or that Roth IRA.
Didn't get one because you were a barista.
You're a barista. I guess Starbucks has pretty good benefits, but
that's true. I was thinking of like a mom and pop shop.
Nah.
Like you can get a Roth IRA through your bank or something.
You got to do something. But the other thing I think of, and it's why I laugh at, like the intelligence plateau is very interesting, and I know a lot of people that are very smart, literally very smart, where it's just like you see these people. Have you ever seen people that just continuously evolve up the academic chain because it's comfortable?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I got my bachelor's. I'm going to get my master's.
Career
I guess I'll get
students.
my PhD.
Yeah.
So you're like 36 and you've never had a regular job in the real world. You've been in the comfortable confines of academia and your books for so long. Yet we kind of look at these people as like the end all be all of what we consider to be intelligence. But I would argue against that because you've never practically put it to use.
Yeah.
You've been sitting in a library for 15 years.
Yeah, that's why I like people like Jordan Peterson, who he's been a clinical psychologist for so long. He's taught at universities. He travels. He's written books. He actually practices what he preaches and what he learns, you know? And I think that's important. And we call those career students, the people who are just like, I'm going to get my bachelor's, then I'm going to get my master's, then my doctorate, and then I'll do some kind of research thing. And I'm like, all right, well, that means you're not really starting your life until you're like 30-something.
Yeah.
Which in some instances it can be okay. Like if you're trying to be a medical doctor and it takes you like a crap ton of years of schooling on top. But I mean, I don't know. I'm finding it difficult to even like judge them because I'm like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Try to create something that benefits people around you.
Sure.
And if research is that thing and you never actually like go out and do anything other than stay in the university and research and like, then at least make something that helps people, you know?
Yeah, and that's not to downplay that at all. Like,
Yeah.
for every great discovery, there's some dude dude or girl
In his basement for 30 years.
Yeah, in this basement in an academic building.
Yeah.
Somewhere, just like with test tubes and shit. You know what I mean? Just doing something. That guy gets no credit. That guy or girl gets no credit.
A human being.
That human being gets no credit. But
that reminds me of in Canada they implemented this thing where it was like, oh, you don't want to label people too much, so they have there was like a Canadian TV show trying to like stop discrimination or something, and so there weren't males and females. There were like circles and squares and triangles and rectangles and stuff. It's like everybody's different. I'm a circle.
I agree with the tenet that everybody is different. I do. I agree with that. But how ridiculous do you have to be in your categorization?
I don't know.
Like, whose idea? They're sitting in a room. They're like, okay, well, we know he, she is no good.
We can't say he or she.
What about circles and squares? What about bananas and oranges? Can we do that?
Those are pretty innocuous.
No, banana's too phallic. No, we need something.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You would think of it like that guy's a male.
You got to do something. Like, we have plums.
Plums are circular, though.
And apricots.
So are boobs.
Yeah, and those look like nutsacks.
You can't do cherries, man.
But it's like, how far down the rabbit hole can you go before it's completely ridiculous and you've wasted everyone's time?
Well, we're already there. So,
oh God, that's a topic for another episode. But I don't know how much about wellness we've talked about. So
not at all.
So it's going to be very misleading. It's just going to challenge me to create the right YouTube title for this.
Yeah, here's my wellness bit.
Yeah, because we got 10 minutes left, so we might as well.
Bananas have more calories in them than you think. There you go. They got like 150 per banana.
Yeah, that'll be the title of the YouTube.
Are bananas making America fat?
Oh, just something fucking.
That would
button.
be the best.
Oh my God, you get a few likes just from that.
And then the beginning of the video, insert a 10-second clip of me talking about bananas right now, and then they'll listen for an hour, hoping to hear about bananas, and they never will.
It's like evil genius in a way. I don't know.
That's how everyone else does it.
I think too, like, we did talk about wellness a little bit because wellness is one of these categories that is so broad that it includes just a diversity of things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, your education, how you learn, what you eat,
travel,
how you exercise, traveling around, broadening your horizons, learning about your moral code, who you are as an ethical being. Yeah,
just don't be afraid to talk about things that you think, you know? And even if you find out that what you think is wrong, if you had never talked about it, you would have never found out.
And that's a big thing for me too, is like the fear of making mistakes is so chronic for people now. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's unfair. Everybody makes it. We have a weird expectation, and the media doesn't do anything to help this, where it's like we chastise based on something that's very human to do. Yeah. That's what evolution is. You make a mistake, and it's like, oh, not that direction. We're going to turn this direction.
You make a mistake, you get wiped out of the gene pool.
It can be, they can be that severe. But, for the most people in our lives, we're so comfortable. You make a mistake. If you can just simply own up to it, learn from it, and then do something different, isn't that enough? You know what I mean? But we just get so pissed. Somebody says something wrong.
Oh, man.
It's like, oh, my God, you are a terrible person. It's like, that's a little bit overkill.
It's like, that's crazy.
But that fear keeps us from having open, honest dialogue about things. And you can't have a conversation with somebody that's that accusatory, which a lot of people are. Yeah. But how are we supposed to learn together if we can't talk to each other?
You can't. That's the open discourse.
Yeah.
You have to be able to have that, which I think it's funny because it's like I like Bill Burr, the comedian, a lot. Yeah. And he'll say stuff. He'll say something and he'll be like, I said this. And someone was like, oh, you shouldn't say that. That's so mean to say. That's not nice. And he's like, well, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
I love it. Yeah.
And it's like, tell me why that is mean. Why is that insulting? And they're like, well, because it's just something I don't want to hear. I'm like, right. Well, then it's your problem.
It's
you're creating that anger within yourself.
I don't have any other expectation except that you can have a conversation with somebody and not feel like or be made to be like a terrible human being for what your opinion is. Yeah. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Get to the core of why they believe it first.
Right.
Because there might be a reason why they believe it. Yeah. Like, I know people that have these beliefs that I don't think are true at all. Yeah. And then when you get down to why they believe it, I'm like, all right, I understand why you believe it because of something you went through or because of this stuff that you were taught at a young age.
Experience, yeah.
But I would recommend rethinking your opinion on the topic. But I'm not telling you you're a bad person for thinking that.
Right. And when did it become mandatory that we have to agree? That's the other thing too. It's like it's the expectation of every conversation now is if you and I don't agree by the end of the conversation, it's bad.
It's bad. We're in a fight now.
We're in a fight. We're against each other.
Time.
We are opposition.
It's like, no.
It's like, dude, no, we just disagree on this thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that we probably agree on.
And it's more useful if you disagree because then you talk about it more in depth.
And you get contrasting points of view. Mm-hmm. So it's like, maybe, but like for the reasons that you said, like maybe because of your past experience, I can do a deeper dive into this topic that I couldn't have done on my own.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, God forbid you have like a useful, practical conversation and you learn something at the end of the day, even if you don't agree.
And don't be afraid of your opinion changing.
No.
And I think what you just said is great because this is why I was like, for a long time, I was like obsessed with reading books and like talking to everyone I could. Like when I was in high school, I would ask everyone I met what was their life story,
Sure.
Because I felt like, and I think a lot of readers really get this. I felt like every book that I read was like an extension on my lifetime.
Sure.
Like you kind of like got to live through an experience that you would have never lived through if you didn't read that book. And that book might have taken place over like a few years inside the book and it only took you a few hours to read. So you're like, boom, I just like dreams. I feel like it kind of adds onto your lifespan.
I like that. That's
books,
interesting.
Hearing someone's life story, like you just learn something that like you would have never learned if you didn't ask them, especially if they're older, which is what I think what you were talking about earlier. Talking to old people, it's crazy what they've been through. Like they've lived through like let's say you're 20.
Yeah.
And you ask someone who's like 100 years old what their life story was. They were like, well, when I was up until I was 18, I did all this, and then I got married, and I was married for like 50 years, and I did all this and went to all these countries, and then my husband died or my wife died, and then I did all this for 20-something years, and then I decided to take up this hobby, and at that point I was like 89, so then like the last 11 years I've been really focusing on doing this. I'm like your mind is just exploding with how much they've done.
I think maybe that we've solved because working in nursing homes, I've learned more than probably any book has ever taught me about what life is, what's important, like what you remember when you get to the end. Yeah. And I think you have to query that a little bit because if you never talk to there's a reason that smart civilizations honor their elders.
Yeah.
Because they're walking examples of how to live life or what not to do, or it's an endless tap of just information that you can tap into if you're willing to. And fortunately, we put these people in old people's home, never visit them anymore. But if you sit down, that'll be the tenet for the podcast. Like if you get a chance, like go visit your grandma, talk to them about like
that's another title.
They love that. Old people love to just reminisce, and they like when people are engaged. It's so meaningful to them. But you can learn so much just from talking to someone who's experienced that much life.
Yeah. And one day you're going to be old and you're going to be that person.
Yeah. So that's what we got to do with school is just have old people come in and talk about shit.
There you go.
It's a whole class.
Old people.
Just old.
I had a teacher once that was really old and it scared me because sometimes he would be like talking. He had a chair up. He had a chair right up there. Cause every once in a while he'd be talking and he'd be like, oh, and he'd like put his hand on his chest and he'd sit down and like breathe it out for like a minute and then he'd stand back up and keep talking.
It's like, not this time. Gotcha,
and I'm like,
bitches.
He was like 89 or something.
You thought you were getting out of class early.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit. This
got the like 911 on speed
dial.
Guy's
going down, bro. It was like when I was in high school, one of my teachers was super pregnant and they were like days away. And I was like, any moment. She's coming out. She's going to be walking down the aisle.
Just wait for it. You got like people are passing around, putting their
like
bets
a baseball mitt, you just hold it.
It makes the save.
Just make the save.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know. Well, shoot, we did pretty good because we're coming up on an hour right now.
There you go.
But okay, so all apologies, we didn't really talk about wellness that much, but just I guess be forewarned that what you read in the caption, the YouTube title for each video for HP Podcast may or may not include anything. Well, may not even be any kind of a even close approximation to what we talk about because it's so we don't storyboard this out at all. We just start talking.
No, this is like tangent. You should name the podcast Tangent City.
Tangent City.
You could be like maybe you just come up with the title after the video's been filmed, so you can kind of figure out what to name it. Like how to live a better life.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like really, really general. This like a horoscope
How
title.
the educational system has ruined your life and your families.
Or just random things like bananas kill people and talk to old people and
Aliens created bananas to take over America.
and start a coronavirus and are killing our old people because those are the learning factories and they want to keep us down. Yeah, they want to keep us down. That'll be the name of the podcast.
A little insensitive.
Well, you've been listening to the HP podcast
Not unoffensive.
With my brother here, Jake, and we've talked about an array of topics, and we're going to try and do this maybe once a week. If not, that's ambitious. Maybe every couple weeks.
Yeah,
and we'll just talk about anything random. So hopefully that strikes your fancy. But again, if it doesn't, then you don't got to watch. There's plenty of stuff on YouTube. Really, I mean,
thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys, and if you're not totally turned off by anything that we talked about today, you should. Try and subscribe or like
comment.
this or
any topic.
Leave a comment, like, because obviously we're like so scatterbrained. It may be easier for people to like ask.
It'd be better
our opinions on stuff. So just like leave a comment with something you'd like us to talk about, and then maybe we'll stay on track.
Yeah,
that would be helpful to both of us because we're both kind of ADD. So
all over there. Yeah.
On that note, it's time for us to end.
All right.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Adios, amigos.